Hello and welcome to a new session about shaping this pipeline. Um, in the previous session we have added email notification support and we have talked a little bit about retrying different steps in a pipeline. Now in this session we will go further and we will talk about the settings that we have to accomplish and the pipeline source code needed to provide to make Artifactory as the default provider of dependencies for the pipeline and for the application, for the developers. Okay, one thing before we will edit the Jenkins file, I really recommend you to read this link if you really want to use Artifactory in Jenkins. Is plenty of useful information. So basically what you will see next is based on this link. Okay, now this is our pipeline, and the next I will try to add in the unit test stage the Artifactory as the dependency provider. So when we will invoke Maven, the dependencies should be downloaded from Artifactory instead of being downloaded from Maven repository. Okay, now the first thing I will do, I will add the Maven home environment variable. This is needed by Artifactory. Further, I will add this code. Here we prepare the Artifactory to serve the dependencies. So we define the Artifactory server and we define the resolver that will serve the dependencies from our virtual repo. The virtual repo was defined in one of the previous session, and as you can see here in Artifactory, this is the virtual repo, which basically groups this local repo with this remote repo. We can easily see here that JCenter repo, as you can see, is basically a proxy for JCenter. We can test the connection. So basically each dependency that is not available in Artifactory will be downloaded from here, and in subsequent requests Artifactory will serve the dependencies without touching the remote repository. Okay, now let's get back to our code, and now I will comment this line that basically executes the unit test, and I will add this one. So I will use the resolver defined here to execute the same Maven goals, as you can see here. And now actually we can remove this line, we don't need it anymore. Okay, we can now save, and we will try to see if when the pipeline will try to execute the unit tests and will try to download the dependencies, these dependencies will be provided through Artifactory. Okay, I will fire up a build, and this is the output. We are especially interested in the download section, so I will skip up the video until then. Okay, I resume the video from here. The unit tests and integration tests are almost ready to start. As you can see, the Artifactory integration is enabled here. Okay, now the integration test start the Postgres database, and soon the download session will start. Okay, as you can see, the download session has started, and I will try to see. Yeah, okay, here it is. Remember that in our case the unit tests and integration tests are run in parallel, and we have set up Artifactory as the default dependency provider for unit test, but we didn't accomplish the same thing for the integration test. And this can be easily spotted here, because as you can see, in case of a unit test downloading, the dependencies are coming through Artifactory virtual repo, while for the integration test the dependencies come directly from Maven repo. So we have succeeded in setting Artifactory as the dependency provider for the unit tests. Okay, the rest of the pipeline now is not important, so we can skip it from here. Okay, meanwhile I have followed the same technique, the same pattern, and I have added Artifactory as the main dependency resolver for the entire pipeline. So I have added also for the integration tests, for static code analysis, and so on. So basically now Artifactory is the default dependency resolver for the entire pipeline. Okay, so far the dependencies for the pipeline are provided by Artifactory, and we want to accomplish the same thing for the code for the developers machines, right? So basically, if we look here now, Artifactory is able to provide to each of these containers the dependencies, but it doesn't do the same thing for the developers. So at this point, this is the POM file of our application, and as you can see, these are the dependencies. We have set up here the integration and unit testing. We have added the dependencies, the plugins for findbags, PMD, checkstyle, and so on. So and Jacoco. So this is our POM. Okay, now let's try to build the application. I build it as a developer on my developing machine, and I'm expecting to see some artifacts to be downloaded. As you can see here, the JUnit artifact is needed, and it was downloaded from the Maven repository. So it didn't use our Artifactory machine. Okay. Further, the build will follow the usual flow. It will execute the unit tests, and if the unit tests succeed, then it will execute the integration tests, and if the integration tests succeed, the build is a successful build. If the unit tests failed, then the integration test will not be executed, and as you can see here, the unit test successfully passed, and now the integration tests are executed. In this case, the unit tests are skipped and only the integration tests are executed, and we have successfully passed this also, and the build is a success. As you can see, I have suppressed the Jacoco, PMD, and so on the developer machine. You can activate it, of course. You can do whatever you want to accomplish. Okay, now let's see what are the settings that we need in order to set up Artifactory to deliver the artifacts to developers' machines as well. Now, in order to accomplish this, the first step is in Artifactory. As you can see now, Artifactory is happily serving 1087 artifacts. Okay, here we have the most downloaded artifacts. We can spot here the web MVC, the Spring Web MVC, right? Okay, so now we will go in, we will click on virtual repo and we will say generate Maven settings. We can provide the password. This is needed if you want to have to associate an account for each developer, and each developer has its own password. In this case, I will simplify the process as I will provide this as an administrator. So we have the virtual repository, the Maven tool, and we say generate Maven settings. This is the repository and we say generate settings. Now what Artifactory generates is this file. This is a settings XML file. You have to provide this file to the developer or to the developers, depends, and you can choose to download the snipe and pass the file to the developer. You can deploy it in Artifactory and it will be available for download, or you can even copy to clipboard and use it as you consider. For now I will simply download the snipe. Okay, as you can see, the settings XML was downloaded, and now I will copy the settings XML file in my M2 folder. Okay, so let's try to build the application again. As you can see, this time the artifact, the JUnit artifact is downloaded from Artifactory. So now the developer machine is connected to Artifactory, and basically the dependencies are coming from a virtual repo repository. Okay, this was the last step of our pipeline. Now the entire project, including the Jenkins file, is available on GitHub. You can find it here. Now the pipeline is done, and in this image you can see the set of stages in a sample run. In the last session of this video we will talk about several improvements ideas. See you soon.